Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of The Badass and the Buddha, where we are going to have honest conversations about relevant topics that most of us will probably grapple with at some point in our life. My name is Annie Fonte. I'm the Badass.
And I'm Alexis Williams, the Buddha.
And today we are going to talk about self-love. And I want to start out by saying, in our lifetime, we are going to experience relationships with a lot of different people, whether it's a spouse, a partner, a significant other, the people we work with in our vocation, our children, people in our church or other communities that we're involved in. However, the most important relationship we will have in our life that needs the most focus and the most nurturing is the relationship we have with ourselves. And that really comes from appreciating and respecting and honoring ourselves, which is all part of self-love. So I want to start out today by asking Alexis to share with us some of her thoughts about self-love and how we can become more gentle with ourselves as it relates to this particular topic. What do you think, Alexis?
Yeah, so I notice, at least for myself, there's always a little bit of humming of this inner critic. And what I found to be of great value was to take enough time throughout the day, and I start my day in the morning with checking in with myself and actually taking the time. I sit quietly, and I actually meditate, but that's not necessary. You can also just sit and start just noticing your breath and taking the time to get connected and start noticing what thoughts are present for you. And then you'll get more of a sense as to what you're needing for that day. And also perhaps even your inner critic may come up. And if so, then what you can start doing is just holding it gently with compassion and start asking yourself, is it true, whatever is going on, this voice of the inner critic? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And then have that as a launching point to make your choices.
I like that you said that, whether we're managing our thoughts or our own self-talk. I've always said to people very similar to what Alexis just said, and that is, ask yourself the question when you say something about yourself or you think something about yourself, is this true? Because 99% of the time, it's not true what it is you're saying to yourself or thinking about yourself. Number 2, is it useful in some way? Is it serving you in some way that is going to help you to evolve to a better place or level up? And 3rd, is it helpful in the situation? Is it making the circumstances better? And if the answer to any one of those or all of those questions is no, then guess what? We have this brilliant opportunity to change the conversation. So the answer to all those questions is yes. And what I would like to do is, let's talk a little bit about, why do we as humans struggle with self-love? We're really usually pretty generous and pretty open to loving others. But when it comes to loving ourselves or treating ourselves well, we wrestle a little bit. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think for myself, so often, and just to confess, I would be trying to fit in. So I'd be gauging my behaviors and what I'm needing to do based on what I'm thinking someone else is wanting or needing from me. It took me a long, long time to have actually the courage to just be able to have this connection to myself enough where I was able to have that be my gauge as to what I'm doing in life and actually honoring that. And I did find that once I was in alignment with what I was needing and living that truth, it shifted everything. Even the people on the outside could start coming forward to me in a more honest way.
So it sounds like what you're speaking to is, oftentimes we get to a place, for whatever reason, we feel unworthy, or we don't feel pretty or handsome enough, or we're unable to let our vulnerability come to the surface, or we lack self-esteem for some reason. And that's particularly true and prevalent in this day and age when there's so much access to digital devices and social media. The young kids, especially in our society, I was doing some research about this topic, and the young kids who were interviewed for this one particular study, when asked what the biggest barrier to them having self-compassion and self-care is that they compare themselves to others, other environments, and other things that they see on social media. So that's a big culprit to having us embrace who we are and our own authenticity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's all in balance. So what else I noticed that was really valuable for me was to explore my spirituality and also to get into nature more, because with what Annie just said, there's this almost feeling of isolation because I feel different than, and I get into that whole compare and despair situation. And so I did take a path of going a little bit more into my sense of faith and also promising myself to be in nature more. So what became important for me is to actually have rituals. So Annie knows this because I send her sometimes a little picture. I go on a walk every morning at a beautiful place. It's Torrey Pines, and I'm on the ocean, and it's just beautiful. Anyway, so that's my ritual, and it helps me connect with nature, something bigger than myself that I'm actually connecting with. And the rhythm, I don't know, there's something to nature I think is very important for me to even feel my own internal rhythm and self-love. And it's a spiritual thing for me, I'll just say it. It truly is. So that's important for me.
I think spending time in nature allows us to feel more connected and grounded. And when we feel connected and grounded, there's safety in that. And so we feel more comfortable in exploring who we truly are as a person, who our true essence is. Let's talk about relationships with others and how important that is in our own self-love. Oftentimes, I've heard many stories, and I'm a perfect example of it. I chose to be in a relationship many years ago, for a lot of years, 12 years as a matter of fact, which it was probably 10 years too long, with an individual, a man, who was not nice to me. And I finally, over time, figured out the reason I chose to be with that type of a person is I didn't feel worthy to be treated well by a man in a relationship. And that stems from other things that we can talk about at another time. But I think it's important for us to really kind of dive into those kinds of things and understand that. And we know in our gut, I knew in my gut, I should not have been in a relationship with this man as long as I was. So I have to trust that gut and have the courage to, if a situation's uncomfortable, leave it. If a person isn't treating you with respect, leave them. If your job is unfulfilling and it's sucking the energy right out of you, have the courage to leave it and go do something else. If you're in a living environment, your home or wherever it is you're living, and it's uncomfortable for you, either leave it or change it. If you're living in a location, in a city that is not healthy for you for whatever reason, have to have the courage to leave that environment. That's all part of self-love and taking good care of yourself. Right?
Yeah, so that brings to mind for me in one word, boundaries. And it's really saying no when, you might say yes, but you really mean no, and to really check into that. And there's a quote, it says, daring to set boundaries is about the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others. And that's Brene Brown, but it's just a way to stay true. And when you stay true, then it allows for the development of self-love.
Right. And with anything, it takes practice. These things that we're having conversation about, they do require us to focus and practice. And part of practicing can be as simple as a really short and sweet affirmation each day before you go out into the world, or standing in front of a mirror. The real vulnerable way to do it is stand in front of the mirror without anything on and start at the top of your head and go to the bottom of your toes and appreciate everything about who you are as a person and really start to recognize all the things that you really, really, really like about yourself. And you're unique. You're unique to anyone else in the world. Even if you're an identical twin, there's still some things that are unique about you. So that would be another thing that one can do to start to practice this self-love. And self-love isn't egotistical, ego-driven. I think when people get to that point, they're classified as narcissists. And I've dealt with a few of those in my life, and that's a whole nother topic we could have a conversation about. This is really having an appreciation for who you are, who your authentic self is, and until we do that, until we master that for the most part, we're not going to be capable of having healthy and thriving relationships with others, regardless of what domain they show up in our life.
Yeah, and so I actually, when we were reviewing for this, there's a book, it's called The Love Languages. I don't know, Annie, if you've done that.
Love languages, yep.
And so I did that just to review. I couldn't remember what mine were. And the point behind that is you can actually use those love languages for yourself. So I noticed that I actually need a quality time was my biggest love language. And if I'm with a loved one, I just want to be with them and have the actual connection in a real quality way. So I know for myself, if I'm, say, going back to the rituals, and if I've given myself a certain amount of time in a day, I know what'll be really important for me is to just really give quality time. But other people might need a gift, and that can be a beautiful thing to reward yourself with a gift or whatever it is. But it's a fun test to take, and you can take it online, and it's free, and it's just called The Love Languages, and you can learn what your own love language is and treat yourself to whatever.
I think the author of that book is Gary Gelfman. We'll put it in the post notes for this video on Facebook. But do go online and take the test. There's 5 love languages. I think they are acts of service, physical touch, gifts, affirmation.
Oh, you did that.
I can't remember all of them, but it's worth looking into. And even if you are one specific of the 5 love languages, you can do any of those 5 different love languages types of things for yourself to express self-love to yourself. And so since we're talking about that, what are some things that we can suggest to our viewers here that they can do to start to practice and express self-love themselves?
Well, going back just on the love languages and kind of in the way of boundaries, a little different, but requesting, letting the people that love you around you, let them know what your love language is, let them really know what makes you happy, because then you're in a way that they can actually, help you out with that. And it can be really rewarding to have the support of loved ones supporting you in the way that you love the most. And I can't help it. I go back to this idea of a ritual, because if you start creating patterns in your day and your week and your month and your year, and you can start actually experiencing the support of a commitment to love yourself. So a ritual. So start your morning in a way that is actually really supportive. And some people like to, have their coffee or whatever it is, but really engage with that in a way that's intentional. I want to use the word intentional. And then also start noticing your environment and putting the things around you that support you. Well, maybe Annie, what do you want to?
Well, because we want these conversations to be valuable to you and give you tips on things that you can actually start doing right now, today, and embrace, it can be as simple as taking a bath and grabbing a book and doing with a glass of wine and just spending some time by yourself. It can be, as Alexa says, go out and do some gardening, in your nature, and you can really enjoy the sounds and the smells around you. It can be going and getting a manicure and a pedicure or a new haircut. It can be when you get dressed in the morning, put a top on that you feel really good about yourself as you're wearing it. Take the time to do your hair. Take the time to make a really nice and healthy breakfast. And maybe if you're going off out into the world, instead of going out to a restaurant for your lunches, spend the time in self-love making foods that will nurture you and that are healthy for you. Because this is all about choice, you guys. At the end of the day, where we all are in our life is because of the choices we've made up until that point in time. So you get to decide. The great news is at any point in time, you can change your life by making a different choice. So choose things that you know will make you feel good on the inside and that will allow you to practice this self-love. Because oftentimes if we're practiced at having negative conversations with ourselves or negative thoughts about ourselves, it takes a little time to reverse those thoughts into more positive approaches to our own lives and more positive thoughts about our own lives. That's why those questions that we gave you earlier are so important. So allow yourself the opportunity to have a renewed relationship with yourself, one that feels good to you from the inside out.
Yeah, and another part of loving yourself is the ability to receive love. And so, even though it starts with giving, it's also about receiving. So, typically, if we smile at someone, they'll tend to want to smile back and allow for that. So, you share some smiles throughout your day and just feel the smiles coming back and allowing that to really go in. And then there's a little exercise that you can do. If you just have the time during the day and you're feeling a little low, but it would just be to sit quiet and take 2 or 3 breaths and get connected with yourself. I'm always all about that. And then ask yourself to think of 3 things that you appreciate about yourself, similar to Annie's mirror exercise. But say you're at work or something and you just kind of gotten a little bit of a funk, just kind of remind yourself of the things that you appreciate about yourself. I was thinking the other day, because I've traveled so much and walked and backpacked and done all this, I was looking at my feet, and I'm getting old and they're sort of tired, but I was so appreciative of my feet. I thought, wow, these feet have taken me around the globe, in so many different lands and everything. And I marveled at them because I thought, wow, these have been all over the place, and I'm so grateful they stand me up. It can be like that. It doesn't have to be about your amazing hair or anything else. It can just be your simple things in your life.
Yes, gratitude sets the tone for your day. I often say to folks who are having a rough day, stop, go find a quiet corner right now. And if you have access to a notebook or your journal or something you can record things on, write down at least 3 things that you're grateful for right now. And that is a state change exercise. So automatically your thoughts start to change and your emotions start to change. And so you can change the state of your being in that moment. So setting the tone is very important and at the beginning of the day. And I also, speaking of rituals, in the evenings before I go to sleep, I go down and I start at my feet and I thank my body parts for being supportive of me and hanging in there and allowing me to get through my day. Because you guys, our hearts beat without us having to plug them in or charge them up or talk to them or repair them in any way. And same with our lungs, we breathe and it's almost automatic to the point where we start to take advantage of it, or we don't spend the time to be appreciative of it. And that's all part of that self-love that we're talking about. So what else do you want to share with us today before we kind of wrap things up here?
I think the biggest thing is just to take to repeat, but take the time to just have a moment and just really feel your breath as intimately as you possibly can to get connected to your center. Even just in that, you'll start shifting, because it's like Annie's saying, it's a miracle. This whole experience is a miracle. And just to connect into that, to remind yourself of that. And then inevitably, things will rise for you. So to start paying attention to what that is. I'm also love the idea about cultivating your intuition, which those steps will take you towards, because there's a natural wisdom within all of us that's kind of leading us to know what we're needing and what we love and how to be in the world. I don't know what you think about that, Annie, but
yeah, and trust that gut. Your intuition is one of those amazingly powerful tools that we have as human beings. And when you really get in tune with it, it can be a lifesaver. It will keep you out of the ditch each time. And so that's why it's important to do what Alexis has suggested. And she will continue to suggest this because, number 1, she's the Buddha. And number 2, she's very practiced at quiet time and meditation and focusing on her breathing and getting connected to herself. And it has worked miracles in her life. I've been witness to some of them. So in ending today, let's have our exercise of the week be this. You can do one of 2 things or both, preferably. Get your journal out or a notebook or a piece of paper, wherever it is you would like to record things. And every morning this week, hopefully as soon as you get out of bed and have your coffee to get you going, if that's what it takes, write down at least 3 things each day that you're thankful for and grateful for in your life. And then the next exercise I would like you to do is stand in front of a mirror and recognize everything about who you are as a unique individual that you appreciate and you're thankful for. And take note of that. And take time as you're doing this, because I want you to experience how that makes you feel emotionally when you start to appreciate who you are instead of beating yourself up. Does that make sense?
It makes tons of sense. And
Okay.
yeah, that's perfect, Annie.
Okay, and so the other thing we want to hear from you in the comment sections, please write down what it is that you did for yourself and what it was that you appreciated about yourself. And also give us some topics that you would like us to have a conversation about, because we really do want to have relevant conversations about the things that you might be dealing with in your life, and all of us working together can probably help each other out. That's what this is all about. Okay, so go out there and make it a great week, and we will talk to you again next week on the Badass
And the Buddha.
Take care.